What would you do if you had nothing to fear? What would you change if you had nothing to lose? What would you pursue if you didn't care what anyone else thought of you? Welcome to the Have You Seen Me Now podcast. I'm your host, Sherilyn. Have you seen me now? Have you seen me now? Welcome back to episode 2 of the Have You Seen Me Now podcast. You guys, I had so much fun connecting online with you this week. Huge thanks to everyone who has been listening, sharing, rating, reviewing, subscribing, and downloading the new single. Seriously, I feel so encouraged to hear how some of you are feeling inspired after listening, and it's made it all worth it. All the blood, sweat, and many tears to reach this point in my own journey. And I'd love to hear from you about how you guys are doing and how I can be of help. I do also offer one-on-one coaching. So if there's anyone out there wanting to really chase your dreams this year, I'd love to come alongside and help you do that. So just send me an email or a direct message on Instagram or Facebook, and I am all about it. I love helping people chase their dreams. I have a couple of clients I've worked with, and it really is one of my favorite things to do, coaching and encouraging. So don't hesitate to hit me up if you would like to know more. So the response to episode 1 was so warm. I thought, well, why don't we do that again? So here we are for episode 2. But this time I thought I'd invite one of my brave and inspiring friends to join me. So you're in for a treat today. My very first guest is a dear friend of mine, Katie Luna, owner of Poppy and Vine, a local photography business based here in San Luis Obispo County. Katie told me she loves to live the slow life here on the Central Coast, spending her days eating tons of cake and celebrating the best days of people's lives as a wedding photographer alongside her husband. So stick around, because in a moment, we'll find out how she pivoted from being a money-hungry engineer for a top automaker to being a full-time wedding photographer, totally set free to run her own business. And my hope at the end of every podcast is that you are inspired to say to all the haters in your life, or even to your own inner critic, yeah. I might have been a lost, insecure, utter mess back then, but man, have you seen me now? This episode is brought to you by Starboard Stride, a unique boutique production company, record label, and sync songwriters collective based in San Luis Obispo, California. Starboard Stride is focused on writing songs for the TV ad and film industry and developing new artists, songwriters, podcasts, and producers. Visit starboardstride.com today and mention the Have You Seen Me Now podcast for 10% off artist development, podcast production, or coaching packages. Visit today's show notes for website and details. Welcome.
I'm so excited to be here.
Oh my gosh, I am more excited that you're here. Thank you for being my very first guest on the Have You Seen Me Now podcast.
It's an honor.
It really is amazing, like all the paths that led us to this moment, the two of us.
It's wild.
So you guys, I know Katie. How long have we known each other now?
It's been like 3.5 years.
Wow, time flies.
Yeah.
So I guess I first got to know you when you were an intern at the church where I was on staff.
Yep.
And tell us a little bit what you did as an intern.
So I came in as a photography intern. So basically I received this word from God before I was even a Christian to go volunteer at a church. And I was like, the only talent I have to offer is my ability to take pictures. So I guess I'm going to do that.
Wow.
And yeah, here we are.
That's amazing. So then Katie ended up on staff at that church, and we were both on staff together for a season. And then she moved on to other things. So we're going to dive into more of that in this episode. But I had to share that Katie is a part of me doing the podcast even, because it was so cool. It wasn't really that long ago that I had Katie do some headshots for me. And we were out in Cayucas. We were out on the bluffs taking some photos. But I just remember like telling you about this little dream in my heart, like to do a podcast. And I was feeling like a little crazy for it. And I was like, I don't know, you know? And I just remember how sweet that conversation was for me. And so I just really appreciate, you know, just that time that we had. And you guys, the cover photo, like on the podcast, Katie took.
I did do that.
So that's pretty cool.
That is my work.
That's pretty cool. All right. So let's get down and dirty. Let's dive deep. Right. We're going to dive deep. So Katie, tell me how it started for you.
All right. So it was an entirely different era of life. It feels like I'm an entirely different human now. But once upon a time, I grew up in an environment that just stressed practicality, financial stability, job security, all of that. Ended up going to high school in a pretty wealthy area down in Southern California. So it was really stressed to me to go to college and like jump into a career and to do something that was going to make an impact. And I definitely think there was a lot of reputation involved in that. People came from families of big names and then, you know, ended up doing big things of their own. So you kind of were looked down upon if you didn't have a big reputation. So I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I was good at math and everybody's like, oh, you should be an engineer. And I was like, okay, that sounds cool, I guess. I knew nothing about it, but every time I would tell somebody that I was considering studying engineering, everybody would say things like, oh, you're going to make so much money. Oh, you're never going to have to worry about finding a job. Oh my gosh, you're a woman. You're going to be in like management immediately. Like you're just going to rise so fast. And that just fueled this fire inside of me because that's really all I was focused on at that point in my life. I didn't have any other priorities. I didn't have anything else that I was really living for. So I was like, okay, that must be my answer. That must be it. That must be the purpose of life. Like, let me chase this. So I packed everything up and moved up to San Luis Obispo for college, started engineering school. And the first year was like fine. And then second year, I started really hating engineering.
Oh, wow.
Like, awful. I would just be panicked all the time because I didn't like what I was doing and all this stuff. But it was that mentality that I was going to make a ton of money. I was going to be a manager really quickly. I was going to just like have this awesome reputation. I was getting a degree from one of the top engineering schools in the country. Like, so that was greater than the fact that I hated what I was doing. Wow. And I would like wake up every day and dread going to class and like couldn't study because I just like had no passion for it. And I just thought that's how life went.
Right.
And there was this like voice in my head that was like, oh, it's going to be fine. Like when you have a job, like it's not going to be like this. You're not going to be doing math problems all the time. And I was like, yeah, totally. So I muscled my way through it, ended up taking 5 years to graduate, changed my major to a different engineering major in the middle of it, was still not like totally sold on it. But I was like, oh, money, status, all this stuff, it's going to be fine. Just get to the end, get to graduation day.
Yeah.
And so the first job I had out of college just totally was everything that fueled my ego. I don't know how I got it. I had like the worst grades in college. I applied for it like online. It was on the East Coast. Nobody had even heard of my university out there. And the title, I was an engineer, but I was in this accelerated management development program that was called the Top Talent Program.
Nice.
And so that everything that was like reputation, yes, I'm doing it, was there. And, you know, the salary was beautiful and it offered, you know, my first 2 weeks of my job were abroad in Germany. And like, oh, you move up one level of management, you're going to have a free car waiting for you. So everything that I had been chasing at that point in time was fulfilled right there. Wow. And I was like, this is it. Like, this company is a career company, one of the top automakers in the world. Like, nobody ends up leaving the company once they start. This is how I will spend the rest of my life, basically. And I was really satisfied with that. I loved bragging about that to everybody in my classes. I was one of like the first people who would sign their job offer and was like, oh, I'm skipping finals this quarter because I'm going to go start my job in Germany. And everybody's like, what is this human?
Well, can we just pause though? Like, You should have been proud, though. I will say that, like, that really is a big thing. So let's just pause and say, in the moment, it was a beautiful, big accomplishment.
It was a big accomplishment.
Yeah. And you did have a lot to celebrate.
Totally.
Yeah. So
I declared it celebration season. That's literally how I referred to it.
Oh, I love that. Tell me more about that.
It wasn't healthy. It just involved me drinking a lot of champagne because I could all of a sudden afford it. And I was like, oh, it's celebration season for like a year straight. I grew up Catholic, so I knew God my whole life, but I didn't care.
Wow.
And when I got to college, I was like, I'm leaving this life behind me. Like, I'm free, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So right before I started my 5th year, actually, I had this like encounter with God in the forest in Washington. So random, but it was like the voice of God was so strong in my head that even me not really knowing him couldn't deny the fact that that was him. And it, like I said, was this voice that said, go back, get involved in volunteering at this church and like, see what happens from there. And I knew one person that was an intern there. So I was like, hey, I think I'm supposed to do this. I don't really know why. Started interning at a church. I barely even knew God. But that season planted that seed in me that I don't think ever stopped growing. And so it wasn't strong enough to change my perspective at all that year. My heart definitely was softened more to God. But, that drive for reputation and money and all of that stuff was still a little bit greater than that voice in my life. But, God still ended up working with that. So I graduated literally the next day, packed up all the things I had in my car and drove to North Carolina where I started my job. And for the first couple of months, it was great. I was doing a really good job at my job.
Yeah.
I remember having like sit down meetings with like the senior VP of the company and him just like charting this trajectory for me. And I got invited to sit in the box at an NFL game with like the CEO of North America.
Oh, wow.
And I was like stoked. I just could not. I was like, this can't be any better. Like, this is life, and this is the greatest thing.
Isn't this all that I've worked for?
Yeah.
And I felt like this. I should be so happy. This should be the culmination of all the things.
Totally.
And
yeah. But there was that little ache in my heart that it wasn't everything. And it got bigger and bigger. And soon my heart was telling me, you need to go back to the Central Coast where you call home, and you need to rethink this whole life you're living. Like, I dare you to leave this behind. And I remember at my church in North Carolina, I talked to one of the pastors, and he had a very similar story of mine where he was super successful, corner office in a financial business in North Carolina. And God one day called him to leave it all behind and go into ministry. And at that point, I still couldn't see how anybody could do that when they had everything, quote unquote.
Sure. Oh my gosh. I still have goosebumps. As soon as you said, like, I dare you to, I just was like, wow.
Yeah.
Like, that was really the phrase that you felt like you heard. It's I dare you to. I loved that because it was like this challenge to just like take a leap.
Totally.
I still have goosebumps. It's like, they won't go away.
It totally was. It was that dare. It was like, trust me. And I hadn't really done that at any point in my life. So that was really scary. And so I said, okay, yeah, sure, I'll do it. But like, I'm only going to move back to California and still be an engineer because I'm not ready to give everything that life brings me up. So I did that 6 months in to my first job that I thought I was going to be in for 40 years.
Wow.
Packed everything back in my car and drove back to California.
Wow.
Started another engineering job.
What did people around you, like, you don't have to name names, but like, what was the general consensus of like, if you told friends or family even, like, were people supportive or did people kind of think you were crazy?
I think family was really supportive because they were really glad to have me back on the West Coast.
That's cool.
Yeah, but also they were kind of just like, interesting. Like, okay. All my friends were at the time really excited because they were like, yeah, we want you back here.
Well, good.
I had some people say like, are you really sure that you're doing this? Like this, you're giving up a lot. And I was like, yeah, but I really had to go back to California. It was very clear. So I came back here, was still an engineer here, like hated that job.
Wow.
I was so miserable. And this whole time back in college, I had started photographing people, doing like senior portraits, graduation photos, all kinds of things. And that was always my side hustle. And that was always kind of what kept me sane. Like knowing like, okay, like I have to go to class today, but like I can bring my computer and edit photos in class, so it won't be that bad.
Nice.
And then that turned into, when I came back to California, I was bringing my personal computer to work and like secretly editing photos at my desk because I just hated my job. That made it really clear that like I was not supposed to be in engineering, and God was like, come on, please just like trust me.
Wow. It's like your whole passion in life shifted.
Yeah. Yes.
Wow.
And so that was when at that point I realized I was only an engineer anymore because I liked the financial stability. Like I hated my job, but like the paycheck every 2 weeks was really nice. And I remember that was like the very specific thing that God was just like drilling into me in that season, was like, trust me financially, like step out in faith, kind of again, like I dare you to do this.
Wow.
And so I was like, I don't know if I could do that. Like, you're really asking me to take a big leap here now. Like, I already did the one leap. Why do I have to do more? And, you know, just like clockwork, like I was offered a job without even asking for it at the church that I was previously an intern at. And I mean, my job at engineering firms just kept getting worse. And so I was finally like, okay, like I have to do this. And I quit my job. And I remember the reaction to that was like, people were like, okay, like you've gone too far. And I remember coworkers were like, wow, this church must be giving you a pretty good salary for you to like leave an engineering job to do that. And I was like, no, I'm taking a pretty serious pay cut actually. But yeah, that was a big step.
That is a really big step. And I love that because I feel like so many people stay in those jobs where they are miserable and where they do set so much of their passion aside. And I love that like kind of picture in my mind of you like, you know, off at work, like on the side editing photos, like doing your real passion and you slowly realizing like, okay, you know, it's time to make this shift. So, you know, it's kind of this mixture of a desire already in your heart and then you feeling, you know, God affirming this then by this job offer. Okay, so you made this giant shift. So bravo to you for taking the huge leap that so many people can be terrified to take. In fact, some of our listeners might be in this exact same position and be hearing your story and be like, I am terrified. How would I ever do that? So Katie, after making this giant leap, totally pivoting and changing careers and setting aside this massive paying job to do your passion and to pursue what God put in your heart to do. Would you tell the listeners now, how is it going?
Yeah. I remember it, like immediately feeling so free, like the minute I drove away from my engineering job the last time, and feeling so light. And that's not to say it's been this easy road ever since, of course. I think I had to learn so much working in ministry and transitioning to being a photographer. I will admit, like, I went flat broke and burned through my entire savings. I had to learn how to actually prioritize how I spent money because I was just living so frivolously before. I had to learn what it was like working for people who weren't these just like standard engineer men, which taught me so much. And now I feel like I can work with and for so many different people.
Yeah. It's amazing how all those little things like add up in our life, like all the paths come together and like things you learned on one path help you on another. And I've seen that so much in my journey too.
Yeah. So it was in this ministry season, like 3 months in, that I shot my first wedding ever.
Wow.
And it was immediately, I was like, this is my passion. This is what I'm supposed to be doing, at least for, you know, the next however many years.
What did that feel like? Like when you're shooting that wedding, what were the feelings that you had that like led you to that conclusion? Like, how did it feel?
I was just so like elated the entire time and so happy. And like, you know, shooting a wedding is not an easy job. Your feet kill.
It's a lot of pressure.
It's a lot. Yeah. I remember it was like, yeah, first of all, you can't mess up.
Right.
It was like 100 degrees.
Shot.
Yeah. It was like 100 degrees that day. Like it was not this beautiful, perfect environment. Like it was a tough day and I'd never lived through it before, but I just remember feeling so alive for the first time in, at least a year and a half. Like, this was what I was supposed to be doing with my life.
Wow.
And immediately I went home and was like, okay, how do I make this like actually my life?
Yeah.
And that took a few months. Fortunately, I had a very flexible job, so that offered me time to kind of dig into that. I just started investing in learning and got a mentor, started interning for a wedding photographer here, and actually like learned how to do things.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And I've transitioned out of this phase of like making these like projected timelines for my life, because I was like, okay, this will be the year of me like working part-time in ministry and like learning how to do things, and like, you know, we'll wait till we like hit the ground running. Like, we're really going to set ourselves up for success here. Mm-hmm. Of course, that's not how things went. It was just time for me to transition out of ministry, and I was kind of like applying for all these jobs that I wasn't really passionate about, but I was like, I need something, and nothing was working out. And so I finally just like got to the point where I was like, I need to quit this ministry job, and I have nothing to fall back on other than this photography thing. So I just did. I quit my job, and I was like, well, I hope this works out for me, because clearly nothing else is. This is in the middle of COVID, mind you. So wow. There was just like nothing really working in my favor. But I was like, okay, like, we're going to take another leap. Like, wow. Hasn't failed me yet. And so I did that. And it's been 9 months, I believe, since that happened. And that feeling of freedom has not gone away.
Wow.
Waking up every day and being excited to jump into work is a feeling I've never felt before.
I bet it kind of feels like $1 million.
It really does. Yeah. And like, by no means am I raking in $1 million, mm-hmm. Not even close to that. But I would not trade any of that for those feelings for the world. It's so beautiful to really, truly know that like every gift I've been given has been combined in such a way that I'm successful in what I'm doing now. And every passion that I have is so just like on fire. And I am just in such a position where I can truly have the time to like, and the brain capacity to like love on people, and also, you know, support myself, support my family. It's wonderful.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's been really fun to like be on the sidelines and watch your journey, Katie, and like to see you blossom and you grow, to see you chase your dreams, to see you like living out your passion. And I can say, from someone who has observed from the sidelines, that I have seen you like come to life, and that has been so exciting. And I know you've seen that in my own life too. Absolutely. We've had those conversations about, you know, and don't we want that for all the people we love? You know, don't we want that for everyone listening today?
Totally.
Like, how many people, you know, do you know that are so unhappy with the life that they're living, or feel so unsatisfied? Maybe they do have a great paycheck, but is their soul satisfied? And do they wake up feeling like $1 million, even if they make $1 million?
Totally.
And I think there's such a different mindset of what is success. And I love that you're totally pursuing what brings you joy. You're pursuing what you feel like, you know, lights you up and what you're made to do. So tell me now, like, when you're, you know, working on things, you're working on your schedule, you're out doing all your weddings and different things that you do. What does that look like for you? And like, how does it feel now to like be running your own photography business? It sounds like you've been pretty booked up from what I can tell.
Yes. Yeah. First of all, we've been so blessed. I will stare at the calendar at the beginning of the month. I mean, it's February 1st right now. So I'm staring at this like empty calendar for the month. And at first I was like, oh my gosh, that's so many days to fill with people who want me to take their picture. That's literally impossible. Or, oh my gosh, I see projected $0 of income coming this month. And I think the best feeling that this job and owning a business has brought is like, I know that I have no training to be doing this other than the little bit of training that I sought out last year. But like, really, I'm trained to be an engineer. Like, I have no business doing marketing and accounting and creative work. So getting to see God just bless us every single month and know that it's really nothing that we've done and everything that he's done is amazing. And then showing up to these weddings and shoots and stuff, and just having an hour or 2 or 8 to connect with people and to learn their story. And yeah, it's just this beautiful, beautiful experience. And even if I go in like a little tired, like, oh, I don't know if I can give it my all today, every single time I leave just like so excited. It's kind of like endorphins you get from working out, but like so much better.
Awesome.
Like I'm just so happy doing that. And it's been a crazy journey, but every single time I have somebody step in front of my camera, it's so worth it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Now, I heard you say we. So for the listeners who don't know, would you fill us in on the we? Because I think that the we comes from someone in your journey along the way.
Yeah.
Here.
So I have a husband. His name is Joseph.
Woo woo. Hey, Joseph.
Yes. And about literally a year ago, he was like, I want to be a part of this photography thing. And we weren't married at the time. And he'd picked up a camera once. And I was like, okay, yeah, actually, that would be really cool. Like, I'd love to shoot with you and make that part of our brand. And so, of course, he's a natural with a camera, and it's really annoying because he's better than I am. I'm like, okay, I've been doing this for years, but that's fine. But yes, he and I are in business together, and, you know, our personalities complement each other, and that allows us to just bring really unique experience to people. And it's fun to work together.
That's so cool. Yeah, you guys are the best. You guys are the best. All right. So as we kind of are bringing the plane to land here, if you were to talk about a kryptonite of self-doubt in your life, what's maybe one thing that you feel like you've had to overcome in order to pursue your dream?
Definitely, there is just so much activity in my mind just lying to me all the time and telling me that I'm not meant to be doing this. I'm not good enough. Every other photographer out there is better than me. People are smarter than me, more friendly, yada, yada. The list goes on. And I think that combined with, honestly, there have been people in my life who haven't been as stoked on my journey. And the combination of the voices in my head and the external voices have led me to some pretty dark places. And I have had to do a lot of work to overcome that. Last year, like for as successful as it was, there was also so much darkness. You know, praise God for community, for people like you, Sherilyn, for actual trained professional therapists.
Amen.
Who have just helped me get back to a healthy place. But there has definitely been a ton of kryptonite in my life that I just have to every single day work past. There's always a teeny little voice there that wants to tear me down from the inside out.
And I love that in spite of those voices in your head, that you have continued to be brave and chase your dreams. And that's really what the Have You Seen Me Now podcast is all about. So Katie, if listeners wanted to connect with you, and your business is called Poppy and Vine, I love it. It's so cute. How would they find you online?
Yes. So there's a number of different ways. First of all, our website, poppyandvinevisual.com. We're also on Instagram at Poppy and Vine Photo, and we love to offer you guys a little deal for Sherilyn's listeners. So this is for bookings and prints in our nature print shop. We're offering 10% off if you mention the code HYSMN, like the podcast, Have You Seen Me Now? 10. So you will be prompted to put that coupon code in at checkout for prints, and then just mention that to me for bookings.
Beautiful. And if you're frantically scribbling, don't worry, it'll be in the show notes.
Okay, cool.
So you can find that code and the website in the written show notes today. So make sure you connect with Katie and with Joseph. They are amazing. They make photo shoots so fun. So be sure to hit them up.
Yeah, we love to get to know you guys.
So sadly, our time is nearing its end today, but thank you so much for spending time with me today on the podcast. But I do have one last question before we end. If you could give some parting words of wisdom to our listeners today. So Katie, what would you say to the haters in your life, or even just to your own inner critic?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would really speak just directly to my own inner critic. The haters don't really matter. I don't really listen to them. But I would just love to tell myself, like, everything that this world tells you is important. The status, the stability, especially the money, none of that is worth it, really, truly, in the grand scheme of things, especially in your life and the way that things go. Like, that's not what it's all about. And to those voices specifically, I would just love to say, you have no authority here. You have no idea, first of all, what you're talking about. You're a liar. And I would just love to say, like, have you seen the work that has been done inside of me? Have you seen how much my life has been transformed, how much my priorities have been transformed, all of that? Have you seen how much work has been done in me?
Yeah.
Have you seen me now?
Yes, girl. That's what I'm talking about. That is the kind of energy we need to bring into this year. Thank you so much to my guest, Katie Luna, for being on the Have You Seen Me Now podcast today. Thanks for listening. I'm your host, Sherilyn, and I'll be talking to you again real soon. Until then, live loud and proud, my friends. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share. I'm your greatest cheerleader, so come drop me a note anytime on my website, Instagram, or Facebook at Have You Seen Me Now? Have you seen me now?